Hi all, and welcome to Niko Presents the RoadMinders. Today's show, we have a special guest. He is an Australian journalist, a broadcaster, writer and producer. He's been on numerous shows and on numerous radio stations. He's written for major newspapers as well, such as the Herald Sun. He is also an author, and he's written his first novel called The Babies of the Rose, which is available at all good bookstores. Let's all welcome Justin Smith. Can you hear me?
Hi, I've got you now.
Oh, fantastic.
How are you, mate? All right?
Good. Thank you for joining me today.
Yeah, no problem. Very welcome.
Very welcome. Excited. Been really excited about it. I am awed in your whole resume because I was looking up on Wikipedia and everything, and I think it's an impressive resume. I think what you've done is absolutely impressive. So how did you start out? When did you start out in radio? How was that? That was a while back.
Yeah, I was 17 and I was working at I did school work experience at a radio station. And I sort of knew that I liked things like radio and writing and things like that, but I just didn't know how. A lad from Echuca, I just didn't know how one really went about sort of taking part in something like that. So I just did work experience at a radio station, which was, inside a house. It's a 2QN in Deniliquin. Yeah. And they said, well, when you finish school, come back and we'll give you a job.
Oh, wow.
I said, what do you mean give me a job? Like doing what? And they said, well, talking on the radio and playing music and
oh,
things
wow.
like that. I said, what?
That sounds exciting.
So I just, I did that, but I just sort of flopped into it, and then I seemed to just flop along, sort of one of those guys, one of those people between 17 and 25, you're walking around and scratching your bum, running into walls, really not sure, really not sure how life really works out. But I just like those sort of things, But I like people like Graham Kennedy and Bert Newton and people like that, but you don't consider them to be young people that are trying to get a job back then, and so I just sort of flopped into it. It was a good flop. I liked it. And then you start to say, oh, look, so they're paying me for this, and this is a profession, this is a job, So different world.
I think it's a bit like, well, we've got a different world now, haven't we? I mean, the YouTubers, the social media celebrities, and you wonder, they're making money. How are they doing it these days?
How they do it? Yeah. Look, I think, there's one the other day, this that I saw, this couple of months ago, actually. I was looking for a tent that I was going to buy. And I was just looking around on YouTube, and there was a kid who was just basically set up a tent in his backyard and told everybody how he was bringing his comic books out and what he was going to eat and how he was setting up the tent and what he was going to sleep with. And he had like 15 million views.
That is crazy.
On his thing.
That is crazy.
It was just... But for me, I watched it and I actually found it more interesting than most of the stuff that I ever see on television.
Yeah.
And I just found the kid really engaging, and even just talking about how he was going to make his dinner that night on his own with his torch. And I just thought, look, hey, the public decides sometimes, don't they? Just exactly what's interesting and what isn't. And he was great. It was good, but it just goes to show you.
They sure do. The public does. What do you think the demographics were? I mean, like, you're an older person. Do you think it was mainly younger people that were watching him, or do you think it was just
a whole? I think it was everybody.
Everybody, yeah. Just amazing.
You know what? I think sometimes it's people that are sick of bullshit a little bit.
Yeah.
And they just like to feel a human connection with somebody. And they just get a little bit tired of that kind of always getting sold something, and always, you feel like somebody's always on the take, and surrounded by politicians and polished speaking and whatever. And look, and I can't, I've been part of that world as well. But I think people just get tired of that. And when they get the chance to engage with somebody in a very real fashion, they move towards it. And that's the good side. There's a lot of, bad side towards social media and those kind of channels as well. But gee, there's some good parts to it as well, and hopefully it'll all sort of even out in the end. That's the hope.
Yeah, that's the hope. Yeah, I was reading up about your early life, and you gone worked at a couple of radio stations. But you know what really interests me was some of the topics that
Yeah.
you covered. I mean, you've covered, I think, road, something with to do with road, a drive show you did, and then it also said something about the gay community. You did something about the oh yeah, it says
Yeah.
depression in gay teenagers,
Yeah.
and I've seen that even in adults because I've got a.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I don't want to mention this person, but I've got someone close to me who is, who's gone through that, and until they
Yes.
actually said who they really were, it was difficult. And he actually rang me. Yes, I don't know if I should mention him, but it's important that we understand that people are different, Justin.
Oh yeah.
And
Absolutely.
the idea of this whole podcast, what it was it's for people driving, people that who are anxious, some people that are aggressive and whatever. Hopefully they listen to something like this or something else, whatever they want to listen to, and understand that Justin does something. Justin is he's written books, he's done this, he's got a life. Don't push him around. Why are you trying to be aggressive towards this person?
So get out of my way.
Yeah.
That's right. Absolutely. Absolutely. Look, and those things that I've written, I guess for me, I moved, out of radio, not so much out of radio, but into writing and into telling people stories. You mentioned the person that that has been through those things. And I wanted to write about, I just find people's struggles a bit fascinating. And I like the opportunity to be able to write about people that aren't necessarily getting heard from. And there are cases around all the time where people don't get the opportunity to sort of shout about something really important. And if I've got the ability to be able to write a column about them or to talk about them, I think I'd see it as a real privilege to be able to do it. And it's what I really like doing. I'm never happier than when I'm sort of punching at somebody over things like that.
No, that's fantastic, Justin. And I believe the same. And I like even teaching, when I teach driving and that, I mean, I get a lot of students that have got variables, a lot of variables, and some kids, and them, but I don't want to talk about them. But there's different kids, and they've got their own story, and they've got their own situation, and you just got to be mindful and respectful and understand that they're trying to get somewhere as well too, and don't be judging on them. And that's the thing that I hate people when they judge other people for without even knowing who they are.
One thing we used to do, I think we were very bad at this, is we used to everyone had to fit into boxes for us. Everyone had to be a certain way, and I think this is, for me, this is the same-sex marriage thing as well. There's people just couldn't cope with the fact that people weren't attracted to the opposite sex. They were attracted to the same sex, and that's the way they wanted to live their life. And instead of actually just trying to find out about that world, if you didn't understand it and try to accept it, they said, no, to hell with that. You've got to actually conform, and you've got to be part of this world. So I think with things like the same-sex marriage, it's about learning how to... It's about teaching ourselves just how to listen to people a hell of a lot better, and to accept people for what they are, far more than we ever have in the past. And I think, for me, for that debate, and that's only one of them, but for that debate, that's, that was a key.
I agree with you. And I think it's a bit like politics, like you mentioned politics before. It's like, I'm a Trump. I only believe in Trump, and Trump's completely right. And he reckons that they cheated and whatever. And so he's right. And then you got the others that say, oh, look, he's a madman. So it's that lack of understanding. But even the people that are actually talking in that responsible position should be a little bit more responsible as well too.
Oh, great. Look, I mean, for me, though, I sort of feel that way about anybody who identifies with a political party. And, including in Australia, I really do. If somebody says, no, I'm Labor to the bootstraps, or I'm Liberal to the bootstraps, and that's how I am, I can't help but looking at that person and say, look, why?
Hey, dude,
why do you have to marry yourself to free thinking and thinking, well, listen, how do you actually feel about something before you find out how your political party feels about it? Why don't you find out what you feel about it? And if you want to be part of the political process and help change things and push things forward through a party, well, that's great. But just to be married to somebody like that, I always find that I've always found that a bit stupid, to be honest. And
we've got a lot of similar beliefs here, Justin, because I'm exactly the same. I totally agree with you. It's been funny because with the boot camp, we've had a lot of people that have been knocking Dan. They hate Dan this, hate Dan that. And I think it's more because they're liberalites and they don't want Dan there, and Dan's destroyed their entire life. But it wasn't Dan that destroyed their entire life, I don't think. I think it was COVID that's actually created it, and then it's understanding that whole situation and then knowing what to do with it, you know?
It's interesting. I like that you mentioned that, because in Victoria, I think we've had a problem with the Dan thing, because we've had half people say that Dan ruined their life and what you just talked about, and we've had the other half that have supported him wholeheartedly, even when he has done things wrong. I don't think either side is right. I think, you know, the more we can get people in the middle, I just like free thinking. I detest religion. I detest people that are linked to political parties. Those types. I think the quicker we can break down that garbage, the better off we're going to be. Anyway,
I think it is breaking down quite a bit now, Justin. I mean, I won't say I don't believe in God. I do believe in God, but I don't like the religious fanaticism that some people bring into it, whatever faith they are. It's not right. It's just not understanding of anyone else's beliefs and no respect for anyone else. And it's the same as saying, it's the same.
I agree. And look,
yeah,
with God, you know, my feeling, and I've said to people, you know, when I've had disagreements, because I will attack. I've attacked a few religions. I've attacked people like Pell. I've attacked the Catholic Church for that way that they've handled themselves in the last few decades over child abuse. And when I've done that, I'll always have somebody come back to me and they'll sort of have a go at me for attacking religion. And I always say to them, well, look, your faith couldn't be too goddamn strong. If I attack religion, all of a sudden you fall apart and it's the worst thing that's ever happened because I've written a column about religion. You know, your faith can't be that strong. And they say, well, I believe in God and I'm a person of faith. That's terrific. I say, go away, sit yourself in a room for a couple of days. And if you walk and forget tradition, forget what your family had taught you, forget about what the church has been saying, forget about people like Pell. And if you walk out of that room after 2 days and you still believe in God, good luck to you. And I wish you well. And if that's your belief and your faith, then I wish you well. But I don't think a lot of people actually, I'm not saying this of you, Nick, by the way, but I think a lot of people just don't actually sit down and figure out whether they really believe it or not, or whether they just don't feel comfortable in not believing it. You've used your faith for good things, and you know, you've used it. And look, there's loads of people that use faith as an instrument of good, and I think, you know, good luck to you, and you have my full support. Frankly, I think that those people would have been just good people anyway, because it's just who they are. Yeah. I don't think they necessarily needed a religion to do it, but you know, it does help guide some people.
It's look, we call it faith, we call it belief, we call it tradition, we call it following a system. I hate following a system. I don't follow any system, and I don't care what anyone tells me that I've got to be exactly like this to be the perfect, whether it's whatever religion it is. I don't believe in that. I believe in being, you know, you've got a conscience. Everyone's got a conscience. And like you said, if you're a good person, you're going to be a good person no matter what.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you know.
And if you think that, you know, some people think that got implanted by a higher being, well, that's okay too. I mean, I don't trash that belief. I don't believe that, but I don't trash that belief. What I do trash is the organization of a group that thinks they have the answer to absolutely everything and are willing to talk down anyone who doesn't agree with them. And there are bucket loads. Muslims and Christians and or any other religion you can think of who all have that sort of similar feeling. And I just think the planet's a lot better off without it. But
I don't disagree with you, because I mean, I've experienced it even within my own faith, you know, and they wear a gown, and from the moment they wear the gown, they think they're I don't know who they
Yeah.
think they are. They
That's
think
right.
like that,
Yeah.
that they know everything, and we know nothing, and we're meant to listen to everything they say, and that's
Yeah.
why you get all the problems in the world, because of that
Oh, yeah.
stupidity.
Oh, look, I mean, the church has, for the good things that they have done, they've caused a lot of pain
Oh yeah,
to a great deal of people, and so I think the child abuse is probably the strongest example of that, because the people that abuse the children actually use the church as an instrument to be able to do it. Now, I can't really think of anything more evil than that.
yeah. I disagree with you.
And then they had all the people that they needed to help them cover it up. I can't think of a more pure evil than what they had done.
Yeah.
I think you'd have to go to the World War II with the Nazis to be able to find something that is as pure as that. So, damn shame.
It is a damn shame. I think that it's a bit like choosing our politicians a little bit wiser. We should choose everyone who wants to act as if they're the leader or the power person, to be a little bit more responsible, to be the person that should be there, because the people that are put there, I mean, I wonder a lot of times, I go, how and why are you a priest? Why do you become a priest? I've actually said it to people before. I've said it to them in their face. I
Yep.
said, and you know what happens? It ends up being true as well. They have to leave it because they're that bad. They're that bad because all they were in there for was just for their own evil purposes. And
Yeah.
but the people around them too, Justin, don't see it. A lot of people don't see it because they look at a lot of people look at exterior. They look at a system and they think, oh well, because he is this and that, then he's the one. But hey, no, I don't trust any of them, to be honest. And I'm a Christian, but I don't trust any of them
Well,
unless they prove their.
no. Well, absolutely. I mean, but and deeper in that is you would have somebody, like a 17-year-old or somebody, or even someone older who was doubting a priest. They had the fear of excommunication from
That's
their
rubbish.
family and from everything that they knew.
Yeah.
Everything taken away from them if they were doing that. And it is basically pushing them into conformity.
Yeah.
Bullshit, Nick. It's
It,
awful. It's
it,
terrible. And
it is
yeah.
bullshit. I totally agree with you, and I call it bullshit. I mean, like, if we did that to our children, our own children, Justin, that would be disgraceful, because we don't know who they're going to come home with one day. They're going to come home with someone that they love, and we hope that they love them and they just go on and live a good life. And that's the most important thing, you know?
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You should see the rat bags my daughters are bringing home. No, they're they're all right. After a shave and a wash, they come up okay. So
yeah, I feel like killing them sometimes as well. I'm saying this on podcast. No, I don't feel like killing them, but oh gosh, they can get you sometimes. No, they're okay. They're all good.
Oh yeah, they're all right. No, they're good. They're good. They'll be all right.
I've got to watch
be
what
all
I
right.
say, don't I? Yeah, but yeah, you sort of go and you think, oh, girls, make sure you bring someone home that's good and nice, you know. Well, we hope that they choose wisely.
We hope.
Yeah,
That's real faith, isn't it? That's
it is real faith. And you do a lot of writing, like you were saying before, Justin. Yeah, you there? Yeah, you do a lot of writing, and
yeah, yep.
I'm
It was
interested.
you just cut out for a sec. Go ahead.
You do a lot of writing, yeah. And one of the things I wanted to talk to you about was the book.
I do.
Babies of the Rose. You're going to have to talk to us a little bit about it. Tell us as much as you can about it, because I haven't read it yet. I did go to Dimmicks to look for it, but I couldn't find it. I've got to place an order for it. I don't know if it's back in there now.
Yep.
But I am interested.
No, it should be in. My local Dimmicks has got some, and
okay, fantastic.
No, it's the book is a fiction, but I based it on real stories that have been told to me by veterans, and I've been honoured enough to speak with, I think, veterans of 6 wars and conflicts: Second World War and Vietnam and East Timor and Afghanistan. And I was in Afghanistan in 2013 with the troops for a while, and it was just a couple of weeks. And uh, I, I've always been fascinated not by war, but by what war does to people and what it calls upon them to do. I mean, we we've been through COVID, and that's been pretty goddamn brutal.
Yeah.
But when you look at the Second World War, the sacrifices and now the PTSD that we have a greater understanding of, we really damage a lot of people with our military, and it's not necessarily the fault of anybody apart from just human nature and war that has damaged them. And I wanted to tell some deeply sort of some personal accounts of what it's like. So there's three main characters in it, and the two of the characters are veterans. One's Vietnam and one's Afghanistan, and they have life-changing moments, and then they come back home and they've got to deal with that. And for me, I just wanted to try to put together all those stories that I'd been told and mix them all up and pick bits out of them, and then write a fiction that just had that feeling of what these people had gone through, and how they described to me what it feels like to be that person. In Vietnam, our guys from Vietnam, the way we treated them when they got back, it's just mind-boggling how badly we got that. And anyone listening to this that had relatives that were involved in Vietnam, they went away to a war, which was a damn silly war to start with. They got back here, and they couldn't even explain it. They had people sort of shrugging their shoulders, saying, "Well, what was that all about?" So they'd just seen their friends die. They'd possibly injured themselves. They've certainly injured their psychology. But they've had people saying, "Look, what was that war? What was it all about? Can you tell me what it was about?" So they had to explain to people what the war was about. Now, imagine what that was like. You've gone away to fight for your country. Well, you think you're fighting for your country, getting shot at, shooting at people, taking lives, and then you come back and no one's got a goddamn clue what it's all about.
That's horrible, isn't it?
And then we just didn't. Yeah, it is. And we just did not embrace them and say, "Listen, we love you. We'll look after you. We don't care what the war was about. We only care about you." That didn't happen. We pushed them away because we either we didn't understand it or we didn't want to know it. Now that destroyed so many men. The suicides that came from that are extraordinary. I think we've seen the same thing with Afghanistan, where it's not quite as bad. I think in the sense that they don't need to explain the war, whatever. But we've really damaged them, and they come back here, and the Veterans Affairs. I think there's a lot of well-meaning people in the government and in Veterans Affairs that try to help out the soldiers when they get back. But I've heard stories where they go to get help, and they're told, "Okay, all right, you need help. That's fine. It'll take 6 weeks. Fill out this form and whatever." Now, I know that the bureaucracy has to happen, but to a person who's suffering from PTSD, they can't hear that.
Yeah.
When they hear that, they just fall apart. It feels like their country is abandoning them. So, I wanted to write something that was, I don't want to pretend to be an authority on and put words in the mouths of any of our soldiers, but I wanted to write a very personal type of book about those stories and about the damage that can sort of get done to people and how they come out the other side, and if they ever do come out the other side, because a lot of them don't.
Yeah.
And
Vietnam was a fascinating war in itself. I mean, and some of the weapons, like what was it,
Agent Orange
that they used, and also the soldiers that actually went to. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. I've got you. Yeah.
It's gone.
I've got you. Can you hear me?
Because I can't hear you.
I can hear you.
Hold on a minute.
Okay, 1, 2, 3. How's that? Can you hear me? 1, 2.
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah, I can hear you now. Yeah.
Great.
As I was going to say, I know that for Vietnam in Australia, I mean, there wasn't actually conscription. It was you got a ball out of a thing and they'd pick a number or something and then you'd be chosen. So that was horrible in itself. I mean, you go, "Oh no, my son's just been picked out of this barrel and he's got to go to war and he doesn't know what for." It wasn't. I remember, I mean, from what I've read, of the First and Second World War, Australians were keen to get out there and battle and prove themselves. And in a sense, and I think we've always done that as Australians as well too. But I think the First and Second World War, there was more meaning to it. I don't know whether you agree with that, but I mean, in the
I
meaning,
do.
in the sense like, yeah, it was, but with Vietnam and Afghanistan.
The country had more meaning behind it. So,
Yeah.
you were going off to save your country, and, the boys were being sent off, because, we were saving the empire, first of all, and then in the First World War, and then we were saving, the land of Australia in the Second World War. And it was, I think Kokoda's a hell of a battle. You look at Kokoda, because those guys, they were standing there, and if they fell, the Japanese were going to roll straight over and come into Australia. Now, it doesn't get more sort of immediate than that. But people understood it, and the importance of it was understood. Whereas Vietnam, that just wasn't there.
Yeah, and we felt it, I suppose, with the bombing of Darwin as well too by the Japanese.
Yes,
at some point.
absolutely.
So,
absolutely.
Yeah,
Yep.
totally different. Vietnam, it does really make me think why. And then when you talk to the Vietnamese that came over to Australia, the refugees and that, and I've spoken to kids that used to work for me years ago, and they literally said to me, from a young child from about 3 to 4 years of age, that have to be given a machine gun to hold to learn how to use it, because that was their only survival at that age. And that's ridiculous. That's crazy.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Look, I always remember we were interviewing, when I was working with Neil Mitchell as his executive producer. We took two um, Japanese POWs, as in prisoners of war, to the Japanese. So it's Australian guys.
Yeah.
And one was at Changi, one was in Changi, and one was on the Burma Thai Railway. And we took them back there. Yeah, they're extraordinary men. Man by the name of Bill Flowers, who's passed away, and Lex Arthurson, who is thankfully still with us. And incredible men, and just absolutely incredible. And I remember Bill saying to me, he just said, "War is a bloody stupid thing, and I can't imagine why anyone would want to take part in it." And I thought, well, only a soldier, could really have the wisdom of those words. He just, it was, I'll never forget it. I'll never forget either of them, what they went through. And yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit more about the Afghanistan war? Because I know the Russians had gone in there at one point, got kicked out, and then the US decided to go in there as well too. So, and that confuses me. I don't understand why they went in there. I really don't understand it.
Well, I mean, it's part of the war on terror, after 9/11 that we have gone in there.
Is that when it happened? Is that when?
Yeah, but that's part of when we went back in there, is to stop the war on terror, and and look, the Australian troops have done a lot of good there. I would imagine they'd also be looking around saying, well, listen, the second that we leave, there's just going to be people fighting again. I mean, it's a fighting culture there, and you're really up against, thousands of years of culture in a place like that to try and change it. And I don't know if you ever really will be able to do it. But, I guess, at that point, yeah, we had 9/11, we had things like the Bali bombing, we had a fear that terrorism was going to take over and keep killing innocent lives, and I guess that is why we're there. So a lot of good things were done, but and you've got the war crimes report that has now come out here in Australia, and that's going to be very tough, because there'll be a lot of soldiers that didn't do the wrong thing that have to be tarred with a similar brush to ones that may have done the wrong thing.
Yeah,
I'm not saying that we shouldn't.
The SAS, weren't they talking about the SAS?
Yeah, they are the special forces. Yeah, but I mean that there's plenty of people in the special forces that wouldn't have done anything wrong, that will need to now, sort of be tarred by that. So that's going to be very, very tough. And there's a lot of fragile people anyway, and that fragility is going to be tested even more by this. So that's going to be very tough in 2021. I think that's going to be a very, very hard. I'm not sure. I'm not saying we shouldn't do it, but it's going to be a very, very difficult process to battle through. Very tough process.
Yeah, it's hard when good people get thrown in with maybe one or two, whoever did something wrong, and possibly did it wrong and not realizing how wrong it was at the time. I don't know. I don't want to excuse them. If they did something terribly wrong, well, then they really have to be put to account.
There's some pretty rough stuff in that report. There's some pretty brutal stuff, and as long as people are, the usual, the proper cliches, innocent until proven guilty. All of those kind of things, and proper process and all of those things are played out. As long as that is an important part of it, then I think it needs to be investigated, because we're going over there to fight the bad guys. We don't want to be the bad guys ourselves. What's the point then?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, would the SAS have? I don't know what you know about it, but would the SAS have worked independently from other, army sources, or would they have been sent in to do that and maybe have done it? Or it's hard to know.
I really couldn't answer that question. Yeah, I really wouldn't know. They wouldn't be. I mean, they're not. They're still part of the Australian Defence Force, part of the Australian Army. Yes, they have to work. They're sent on a mission, and they have to think independently and work independently, but not from that. But also I couldn't really answer that question there.
Yeah, it's a difficult question. I just thought I'd ask it anyway.
No, that's fine. Yeah. Absolutely.
So you've done a drive show, is that right?
Yeah, I was in Sydney for 2 years doing the drive program, which I really liked. And
what does that mean exactly, a drive program?
Oh, well, drive in radio terms is around about between 3 and 6 p.m. Okay. Because they call it drive because that's when people were driving home. I think it's a reasonably old-fashioned term, to be honest. But it's also a great time to be on air. I loved being on air during drive time in a place like Sydney, because you've got so many people in cars that are, really, you've got a really captive audience where they're really listening to you. And if you trip up, or if you take them for granted, they'll soon point it out to you. They're a very tough audience, and I kind of like that. I really love that. And that was good fun. I lived in Sydney for a couple of years. I really liked Sydney, and I think I love living in Melbourne. But I had the best of both worlds. I was commuting between Sydney and Melbourne for a couple of years, so I was living in a couple of the best cities in the world.
Yeah,
simultaneously.
Most definitely. Whereabouts in Sydney were you?
The office was in St Leonard's. The studio was in St Leonard, and I was lucky enough to be living in Kirribilli, just on the water there. So that was kind of just down the road from the Prime Minister's residence. So that was kind of nice, because I went out for an evening jog, and then Prince Charles drove past.
Oh my God!
In the with the motorcade to pull into Kirribilli at the time. Crazy. So that was. That was, so Tony Abbott was Prime Minister at the time, and I was lucky enough to get invited to Christmas drinks at Kirribilli, and he and his wife invited us, my wife and I, there for Christmas drinks, and with other members of the media and some captains of industry and other politicians. So we were standing there, and we were just talking. And I said, "I only live down the road. I'm, This is great. It's a very convenient spot." But I was very, very lucky to be living in a place like that. Enjoyed it immensely. It's tough, the Sydney market is incredibly tough, but I liked being tested out like that. Yeah. I liked being given almost an impossible task, a radio station that was sort of, down in the pit, and you get the chance to lift it up a bit. And if you can have some form of, if you can achieve some things. But it was great. I liked it. Wouldn't change it for the world.
So why are Sydney-siders different to Melbourne people? What's the actual difference there? Because, I mean, you're saying they're tough. So what's your take on it?
It's a tough market. Look, I think both Melbourne and Sydney are tough in a similar way, which is they don't like outsiders sort of trying to tell them.
So you were an outsider to them, were you?
Look, I probably was. Yeah, I would say that I would have been seen as an outsider, but also I sort of tried to attack it more as a journalist, in the sense of I was more about questioning more than opinions, than just having opinion after opinion. But as you can see, you know, I've got opinions, and I would let them out, but I tried to be more of a person that would question, and I tried to interview hard, and Sydney radio audiences aren't necessarily big on people being questioned hard. They're more about just opinion, and more or less being, I'm going to be a little bit unkind to some of the Sydney audiences here. They kind of like being told what to think, rather than sort of a debate, you know. And some of the audiences some members of the audience, some sort of very vocal members of the audience, basically don't want to have a debate about something. They just want to hear their own thoughts sent back to them, you know, just to sort of verify that what they're thinking is right, as opposed to, but whereas I was sort of keen, I'm very keen on the debate, you know, let's have the punch up. And for me, you know, when I was hosting radio, there's nothing better than getting an interview subject on that you totally disagree with.
Yeah.
Rather than get somebody on, whereas a bit of the habit can be in radio where you just basically get on somebody that you already agree with, and you just sit there batting it back and forward about how terrific your opinion is. Yeah. I preferred to always get the person who I totally disagreed with, and we'd have a punch up, or we'd we'd agree on some things or disagree on other, but you know, we'd thrash it out a bit, and that's kind of what I like. Sydney audience doesn't always like that, which I find, I don't know. And look, there are people in Melbourne like that as well. The Melbourne audience can be like that as well, where they just basically want their own opinion sent back to them. But, you know, I just don't think you can worry about people like that. I think you've just got to do it the way that you feel it. I think if you're gonna write a column in the paper, or write a book, or even write a goddamn song, you know, if you're going to do it, you've got to do it because you think it needs to be written or needs to be done. I think if you try to do it just to sing to the choir, to please other people, or I've got a bit of a theory for you, Nick.
Okay, talk to me.
I've never said this. I've never sort of expressed this theory publicly, although I was going to write a column on it. But I've got this theory that if you do something right wing, considered to be sort of right wing, express a right wing-ish kind of opinion, you will get a lot of love back. People will say, "Oh, you're terrific. You know, you're the only one who says what needs to be said, and you know, you're great and you're wonderful." I can think about 3 columnists that pop in my head right now that fit into this kind of category. If you do something towards the left a little bit, you will get pretty much silence. You know, you've got to expect silence. So if you write a leftish kind of opinion, I don't normally like to talk in left or right terms, but if you if you write something a bit lefty, you will get silence. Even the left won't really get hold of you and say, "Hey, that was Justin, that was a bloody good column. That I'm really glad you wrote that. You should be writing that." They tend to go a little bit quiet.
Is that because they're afraid,
I think we have so many. No, I think it's just in their nature a little bit to be a little bit more quiet. This is just a personal observation. There are probably people that disagree with me. Yeah. So I think there's more right-wingy kind of nutbag commentators because they fall in love with that feedback. So it's not something necessarily that they always agree with or believe, but they fall in love with being told, "Oh, you're terrific, you're wonderful, you thank God somebody's saying it the way it should be said." And they fall in love with that kind of admiration. And so they go harder right and harder right. And they think, well, if I write a even more conservative column next week, they're going to really love me. So, I think it's a little bit of a trap. So, and I not necessarily, I wouldn't say I've fallen into that trap, but I've felt that before. I've written columns about lenient sentencing. And the courts and the way that we've let a few people off, and that would be considered a reasonably conservative kind of column, I would think, although that's not what I wrote it. And I get a pile of feedback where people say, "Oh, thank God somebody is saying it," and you sort of can almost puff out your chest and think, "Well, I could get used to this." this admiration and this love. And that's when you've got to sort of walk back from the brink and say, oh, no, well, no, you've just got to write what, next week I might disappoint you. And in fact, I've done that. I've written one of those columns and I've had some sort of conservative type people say how much they love me. And then I've written something, I think I was writing about greyhound racing and what a terrible thing greyhound racing is and the way that they've damaged the animals and whatever. And that would be considered a pretty lefty thing. And I've actually had people write to me and say, I'm really disappointed in you. I thought that you were, a good guy. And then you write that garbage,
Oh,
so
God.
anyway.
That sounds hilarious. I mean, it's more like if I say to you, Justin, what the hell are you talking about? You don't know what you're talking about. You're just someone who just likes to write crap or whatever. And everyone's going to go, oh my gosh, isn't the way he's talking to Justin? He must know what he's talking about. So, yeah, it's
yeah. Oh, look, but don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
I really like it. In fact, a producer of mine in Sydney, a wonderful person who now works for the New South Wales government called Vanessa Till, fantastic human being and dear friend of mine, once said to me, she said, if I was replying to a couple of people who were writing to me about the columns saying how much they hated me because I wrote about George Pell and things like that. Mm-hmm. And she said, if only those people knew how much you enjoy them yelling at you, they would never write another letter again. If only they had a hint of how much you enjoyed getting thrashed by these people. Because you get the chance to send them back letter. They'd shut up. They'd never do it again. So, well, for God's sake, don't tell them because it's just too much, it's too much fun.
It's too much fun.
It's too much fun. There's nothing like it. I mean, during the same-sex marriage debate, because I was strongly believing that we needed to change the law and make same-sex marriage legal and equal, just like everybody else. I had some of the most awful and ridiculous people sending me letters saying, what an abomination it was and all those kind of things. And some of the greatest evenings of my life were spent at sitting down, typing replies to them, telling them how despicable I thought they were. It was just great. It was like playing tennis with Federer or something. It was just like,
yeah, that would be fun.
You're getting thrashed, but you're still enjoying yourself.
Yeah,
if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean the joy of the competition. Yeah. Wow, interesting. Now I really want to talk to you about driving.
Oh yes,
and it's specifically about your Harley Davidson because I've seen it and I love it. And
it's a magnificent device, isn't it?
Do you know what? As a motorbike, it's probably about the only motorbike that I'd want to ride, a Harley Davidson. And there's a reason for it as a driving instructor that I would. And I don't know if you know why, but the main reason is
bit of noise.
The noise.
The noise, yeah.
The noise, I feel, is a safety feature on it because people don't see motorbikes. They don't see them out on the road. And I've seen tons of motorbike accidents in front of my eyes. I've seen them happen. I've seen cars that are at fault, but I've also seen people that ride motorbikes at fault. But as for something, if I was ever to ride a motorbike out in amongst the crowd, it'd probably be a Harley Davidson. What do you think?
Oh, look, I think so. Some of the Triumphs are good. They've got a lovely little tone about them as well. But I think you do need something with a bit of it's a bit of a bass rumble that actually penetrates the car. So somebody's there and I can see somebody in front of me and I'll see them hear me. I'll see their head sort of turn a little bit and they become aware of me. And it's more of a vibration of, a deeper vibration that comes through the car, which is, and it's great because it scares the old people and the kids, as well when it comes down the road. But look, they're lovely devices. I know that motorcycles are not as safe as cars. And I never debate that point with anybody. I especially would never debate it with a professional like yourself. But to me, a life without riding a motorcycle is half a life.
Oh, wow.
It is.
You really love it then, don't you?
It's just one of the greatest. A friend of mine, wonderful crime writer called Keith Moore, who a lot of people would know of, wrote some of the greatest crime, real life crime books and reporting for the Herald Sun for years. He and I are both motorbike nuts, and we both agree on this point: is that it's only half a life, and when life gets tough, to be able to get on a motorcycle and just feel that and have it is just like it's like flying, and it's it's just a gorgeous thing.
Do you wear your Hell's Angels?
No, I try not to look too tough, because I think, if I did that, I'd think, I'd be falling into the wanker category of some idiot, who's out there, trying to look tough. And so the most I've got is a black leather jacket. That's probably about as tough as I get, And
how about the helmet? Do you wear, those Harley Davidson?
I'd love to. You know what? I'd love to wear one of the I'd like to wear one of the half helmets that just covers the top too, not even at the side.
Oh, wow.
Just because it's even more freedom, feel the air even a little more. However,
you see them in the sidecars. They usually wear those ones.
They do. But my lovely wife has sort of put the car, she doesn't put a foot down on many things, but she said, look, I don't mind that you ride a motorbike. Great. You're not going around, with just this thing sitting on top of your head. You're going to rip your face off. And look,
I think that's fair.
It's pretty smart. It's very smart. Yeah. But they're extraordinary devices. And I get in the, and Nick, you would see this, I get in the traffic. I took my daughter for a drive before, and I was driving, but we had to go and pick something up.
Yeah.
And coming back, I've hit every goddamn red light.
Oh.
I'm sitting behind, looking at everyone else's asses, in the line, waiting, and for me, that is just death to me. And I hate traffic. I had a lovely car that I liked a lot. I had a Jaguar, which I really enjoyed.
I remember the Jaguar. Yeah,
you remember the Jag, and I really liked that car. It was wonderful. But you don't get to drive it in Melbourne. You get to park it at a red light, and then they allow you to move 100 meters and park it again at another red light, and then the process continues. You don't actually drive the goddamn thing. So I just got sort of sick of that, and now that I'm back on the bike, and that's my main mode of transport, I don't feel that, because at the lights I move my way to the front. Filtering, we call it, don't we, Nick? Filtering.
Yeah. You're allowed to do it on a motorbike, though.
You're allowed to do it on a motorbike, and I've never had any dirty looks from anybody. Yeah. Mainly because they think I'm in a gang, but I just weave my way.
You're a Harley Davidson. You don't know who's riding it.
No, exactly. You don't swear at a guy on a Harley, and so you just move to the front. Haven't had any dirty locks, and I just move. But, and I'm always moving. And so that's a different thing to me. I guess I'm a little bit too impatient, I think, as a driver. I'm not an aggressive driver, but I feel the impatience of driving. I don't know if there's any advice you can give me to fix that.
There's certain medication you can take, but you won't be able to drive then.
No, that's right. Exactly. But I don't know. I just when I sit behind in traffic lights and in traffic, for me, it's just a wasted life. And
look, the roads are just getting so dangerous out there, Justin. They're crazy out there. And I know you ride a motorbike, but I'll tell you something that happened to my son about a week and a half ago. And this is the scary part of the road. I mean, that's why I asked about how your daughter was doing and so forth, because it really concerns me. He was sitting at traffic lights at a red light outside a police station at Eastland. And he was the 6th, 7th car in line. He was just sitting there, just waiting for the lights to change behind these cars, this line of cars. This is the problem with a motorbike. And this is where you've got to be alert and be on top of it. And your impatience has to be prepared for everything that's happening, and also in cars as well. He was sitting there. Guy came around the corner from, I think it was one of the main roads there, turned onto in front of Eastland, in front of where the police station is, where the courts are, and just ran straight into my son from behind.
Oh, is he all right?
The guy though never stopped. He never put his foot on the brake once. So he went bang, bang, bang 4 times. The rear of the car went right up to the seat, and the front of the car came right up to his steering wheel. He was
Wow.
sandwiched in front in the car. He was lucky to come out alive. He came out with nothing, no, just a little scratch.
Your son's okay. He's
Yeah,
okay.
My son's okay, thank God. I mean, I don't think I'd be able to do this podcast if anything had happened to him.
No.
But he was doing absolutely nothing, just
Nothing
waiting
wrong.
for lights. Yeah. And he said to me, Dad, I saw him coming from my mirror. And I said to myself, where do I go? If I go left, I'm going to get killed because it's a concrete building. I can't go there. If I go to the right, that's where he should go if there's something wrong with him.
Yeah.
And he'll probably T-bone me. So he goes, all I could do is just brace and just wait for the impact. And
wow,
it is scary.
Frightening.
It was a 7-car pole up in the end. And the guy was on drugs or something.
Yeah.
It was something. I'm not really sure exactly what it was. And it happens. It happens out there. On a motorbike, you got no protection there, man.
No.
You got no protection. And it's where you've got to be 10 times smarter than the average person. And don't ever be cocky. I'm not trying to give you advice here as a dad.
No, I appreciate it.
But
not at all.
But I've seen motorbikes where there's 2 lanes. I think I can't remember which road. It's say like Burke Road. You got 2 lanes of traffic, all bumper to bumper. The motorbike wants to go past them, but goes past on the left in the bicycle lane. Okay. But there's a street there and there's people turning right into the street because it's keep clear.
Yeah.
But the motorbike's not thinking, all he's thinking is about just going straight through. The car, I was with a student at the time. I said, oh my God, this motorbike's going to get, because I saw the guy starting to turn in. And I said, this guy's going to get hit. And he did. He literally, luckily the guy sort of thought maybe he heard something. I don't know what he might have seen in the corner of his eye and stopped a little bit, but the motorbike went straight into him.
See, and to me, that's so frustrating because it doesn't need to be like that. I don't ride aggressively at all. I don't ride competitively.
Yeah.
Which I see a lot of riders do that. They ride competitively as though they're trying to, beat something. And I just don't do that. But there's another thing I learned. Nick, help me out. You can tell me if this is wrong thinking as well, but it's something that I learned off YouTube, which was invisibility riding. And it's basically you ride as though no one can see you. And it works really well. I
agree with it.
You don't expect anybody to, you expect someone to pull out in front of you. You expect them not to see you. So you've got to put yourself in a position that if they don't see you and they move lanes, you're not going to get wiped out. And it works brilliantly. And it's such a simple way to think. You don't have to have a million things running through your head. You just ride like you're invisible, and it works. It's great.
Yeah. I think that's a great idea. I mean, it's something that I teach the kids in driving. I say to them, eliminate the blind spots, and understand when you are in a blind spot and eliminate yourself from in a blind spot. It's to the easiest thing is just to give you an example. You sit at a curb, you parked your car on the curb, okay? And if you've got room to go behind you, that's fine. But you've got a big 4-wheel drive in front of you. No one knows you're there. No one knows you want to pop out, okay? And you're in a blind spot. You're in a blind spot that you can't see and people can't see you. So you've got to think, how am I going to set myself up so that when I do pull out, it's going to be safe? You've got to do it slowly. You've got to pull yourself back as far as possible, be able to see, stick your head out a little bit, see both ways before you can pull out and just come out slowly. Eliminating the blind spot is really important. And what you said about driving like you're invisible, yeah, it is, because you don't know where they're going to come from.
You don't.
No idea.
And look, and also I think with a motorbike, there are people that from other countries that see motorcycles in a very different fashion. They expect motorcycles to weave around them and to move around them because that's the culture of driving where they came from. So you do have to be wary of that. Not everybody is going to give way to you the same way. There are some drivers from overseas who learn to drive from overseas. I'm not bashing anybody from overseas, far from it. But people who learn to drive in a different culture see motorbikes. I went to Hanoi in Vietnam. Beautiful country, beautiful people, wonderful. And if I tried to ride a motorbike there, I'd last about 5 seconds because they just ride differently.
Yeah.
They ride like, I describe it like plasma through a vein. They just move as needed, around whatever object, and it's very fluid and organic, and it works very well. Now, that doesn't transport necessarily to the way we ride here. So that's just that invisibility training sort of helps with that. And I think, can I mention pet hates on the road, Nick?
Yeah, definitely. I want to hear your pet hates.
Tailgating.
Oh, do I hate it? It's the worst one I hate.
I don't believe in the death penalty, but if we ever bring it back, for whatever reason, for God's sake, can we make sure we stick tailgaters on the list? Why
do they do it?
I don't get it.
I question, why do they do it? I mean, when they do it to me, they can't get away with it because I won't let them get away with it. But with an L-plater, how about a poor L-plater that's getting tailgated? And they're going, there's someone on my tail, I'm scared stiff. And they accelerate a bit faster. Or it's things that people do. And, you said about the culture of the road.
Yes.
The culture of the road is something you can find different in Surrey Hills. You can come up to Roadwell, it's going to be totally different. You go over to the west, Footscray, it's going to be different.
Yep.
Go over to Sydney, it's totally different.
Yes.
People drive differently. And the fact that people, and we do have a lot of people that come from overseas, fair enough, and they have driven overseas. To drive in Australia, they have to acclimatise and learn how. And the problem is, I think we've acclimatised to them and starting to drive us bad.
Yeah. I agree. I don't think we've done enough to help international drivers.
I totally agree.
To become to just get a handle on the culture here, and I just don't think that we've done that enough, and it leads to, I think it can lead to a little bit of racism as well, because people will look at a driver from another country and get annoyed at the way they're driving. But I just wonder whether we have done enough because look, if I went to Hanoi and I'm not picking on the Vietnamese, for goodness sake, please, but I'm just using Hanoi as an example because of the motorcycles. If I went there, I would crash within the first 5 minutes because I hadn't learned the culture of the roads. I've just got behind a vehicle and I've hit the accelerator and off I've gone, and I could run over some poor bastard because I don't understand it. And I think we need to do a hell of a lot more. I'm not a fan of Vic roads, by the way, Nick. I actually, if they were going to bring back, the Nazi Party in Australia, if they were going to bring the Nazi Party to Australia and they said you can either have the Nazi Party or Vic roads here, which one would you pick? I'd have to think about it for longer than I should. I detest their processes. I detest the bureaucrats that work in the licensing and registration area. I detest the way they conduct their business and the way they deal with people. They are awful. And there
are some good people there as well, I've got to say.
I've got friends who work for Vic Roads, but none of them that work in licensing and registration, I might add, because I don't think they'd be friends for very long. But I'd like to see an overhaul of Vic Roads, because I think there's a lot of things that they fail at, and I think it's dangerous because they fail. And I'd really like to see us overhaul that and fix them up a bit. I think there's plenty of work to be done.
You mentioned license and registration. What in particular with licensing and registration?
Well, if you're up for a story,
yeah, I am definitely.
Would you like a story?
That's what we're here for.
And I wrote a column about this, so if you Google my name and Vic Roads, you'll also get the written version of this story.
Okay, I'll do that, and I might even get in the podcast.
Well, the dangerous part. The dangerous part is, I think, the international drivers. I think that's a big part of it.
Yeah.
And maybe that's not all the fault of Vic Roads. There's a lot of legislation in that as well. But
that's worldwide as well too, Justin.
That's a problem worldwide. Yeah. But so I bought you'll love this story, Nick. I'll try and do it as quick as possible.
No, do it as long as you like. I want to hear it. I can't wait.
So I bought the motorbike. And I went down. I thought, I don't muck around with these things. I'll get the registration. I bought it privately from a guy, and took it home. And he gave me a roadworthy certificate. It was part of the deal.
That's what you normally do.
So he gave me the roadworthy certificate. So I get home and I thought, I won't muck around. I've got a day off. It was Monday or Tuesday after I bought it on the weekend. I said, I'll go and get this sorted out. Went down to Vic Roads. People everywhere. This is just before COVID kicked in and the society crumbled. People everywhere. It's packed. Anyway, I thought, oh, like, that's okay. You know, that's not Vic Road's fault that they're busy, you know, but it was so busy. You know, it was just ridiculous. It was like the Changi airport or something, you know, just at peak time. It was crazy.
I love your descriptions here, Justin.
You know, I couldn't figure out if I was at an AC/DC concert at the front row or whether I was at Vic Roads. I couldn't figure it out. Anyway, so I anyway, that's you know, I think it took me about an hour and a half to get seen. But I thought that's okay, and I've got everything filled out. You know, I've filled in my forms, I've done it all correctly, and whatever, and everything's fine. And I've gone to the front, and I've said, I'm just changing it over. Blah blah blah. And she said, "Oh, there's an error on the roadworthy certificate."
What?
And I said, "An error? What do you mean?" And I looked at it, and she was right.
Yeah.
At the top of the roadworthy certificate was the wrong date than the bottom of the where you tear it away, right? But it was clearly an error because the month and the date had sort of been reversed. You know what I mean? Like, so the mechanic who did it, you know, had just scribbled down the wrong date. Everything else was correct. He had all the chassis number and whatever that was important was there. The VIN and everything was all perfect.
Yeah.
So she said, "Look, you'll have to get another roadworthy certificate." And I said, "Oh, give me a break." I said, "What?" I said, let's sort this out. Let's, you know, fix this up." And she said, "Oh no, look, well, they don't match." And I said, "Well, yeah, but surely you allow for some human error on these forms. Don't make me get an entire new roadworthy certificate." So anyway, she said, "Oh, I'll talk to the supervisor." So the supervisor came over and said, "Oh no, you'll need to get a new roadworthy." I said, "Oh, this is ridiculous." And I said, "Look, there is the name of the mechanic and there's the number of the mechanic with their licensing number, you know. So it's all above. Call the guy and verify the information to make sure that I'm not trying to do something untoward." I can't see what the scam would be anyway, but I said, just call the guy and get it verified. No, we can't do that. Anyway, so as I mentioned before, I don't mind punching and having a bit of a fight. So I stood there and argued for a minute. And then I thought, no, you know what? I've got my new motorbike. Nothing's going to spoil this moment for me. I'm going to take a ride to the dealership where they got the roadworthy certificate, and I'm going to get them to give me a new form. So I went there, and they were as nice as pie. It was Harley Davidson in Dandenong, actually. And they were as nice as pie. They just said, "Oh, we're so sorry we made the mistake." And I said, "Look, no, it's not. It's just an error. It's just a mistake."
Yeah.
And they said, "Bloody Vic Roads," you know. Anyway, so they filled me out another form, you know, got it all fixed up, and I went back to Vic Roads, and I thought, I'm not standing in the line.
This is gold.
Not standing in the line. So I went up and I said, "Look, here you go. Here's your roadworthy certificate." And I was nice to the girl behind the counter because I never argue with frontline staff.
Yeah, it's not their direct.
It's not their fault. I'll only ever argue with the managers, you know, so, and whatever, or the policy people. So never, I didn't yell at the person at all. She was just doing her job. So I gave it to her and she said, "Oh, great, terrific. We'll sort it all out." And she said, "Oh, you've miscalculated the transfer fee, right? That, you know, the little tax that you've got to do, the registration fee." And she said, "It's not." And I said, "Oh, come on." And she said, "It's not $12. I'm making this figure up, but it's pretty close to it." She said, "It's not $12, it's $56. And I said, "Are you sure? I got this off your website." And I said, "It's a motorbike, not a car. A car's 56, a motorbike is 12 or whatever it was." And she said, "Oh, let me double check." So she double checked, said, no, it's 56. I said, "Fine, I don't care. I want to get out of here. Let me pay it." So I paid it, said, "See you later." As I was walking out the door, I thought, no, hang on. So I stood there and I checked the website on my phone, and sure enough, it was $12 for a bike, 56 for a car. So that's when I started I walked back and I said, "I want to see this supervisor." The supervisor came out again and I said, "Do you see this?" And he said, "Oh, no, it's," so we argued. And then he came back and he said, "Oh, we've made an error." And I said, "Oh, you mean like an error, like a mistake, like something that just happens with people. They just get some information wrong, you know.
Oh my
Just
God.
is that what you're talking
I'm
about?
loving this story. Yeah, exactly.
That kind of error. Anyway, he said to me, he just looked at me. He didn't know what the hell I was talking
They're
about.
allowed to make errors, Justin. They're
That's
allowed to do
right.
whatever they like.
Damn right. And then I just went to town on the guy and I said, I've wasted hours riding out there to get this roadworthy certificate, coming back just to satisfy you when you could have helped me out and fixed up this problem before. And now you make an error. I said, give me my money back. And he said, well, we can't. We'll have to send you a check.
What?
Anyway.
Oh, Lord.
So
I
contacted.
Yeah, but I do believe it because I've dealt with Vic Roads myself.
You've dealt
and I
with
know what they're
You've
like.
dealt with it. As I said before, Nazis, Vic Road, which one would you pick? Anyway, so I thought at this point, I thought, oh, look, you know what? I'll stop worrying about it because I'll get a column out of this. You know. So sure enough, I wrote a column having a go at them, and then I rang them up, and they'd done it to hundreds of other motorcyclists as well. So they had to pay them back, and they got it wrong. And you know, I just went to town on them. I said, I don't mind the error, but this is the problem I have with Vic Roads. They do not permit any other human being on this planet to have any other kind of error or make any little mistake, like these L-plate kids with their logbook. I mean, I know they've got the apps now, but these kids with their logbooks and whatever, they crack right down. You would have seen this. They crack right down on those
worse than that.
Tell me, please.
Oh,
you know,
well, I'll tell you, because I've had to query them on tests, like where they've actually given a result on the test, and the kid never failed. He never did anything. And I've gone in and spoken to management, but they hate it when I speak to them because I said, look, I'm a qualified.
Because you know what you're talking about.
I'm a qualified testing officer. Because they go, look, our testing officers have been, and I said, so am I. I'm a testing officer as well. I know your system as well too. I know just like you. And they go, they just stop. But they will never accept liability. They'll never accept that they made a mistake. They just force you. I remember having a test with somebody, and they failed this kid, and they said that he never looked in his mirrors. This was in the first stage of the test. And he did this perfect reverse parallel park. And I went back and they felt, and unfortunately I knew this person. They might listen to this, but sorry. But anyway, what happened?
Do they work for Vic Roads?
Yeah, they do.
Oh, they can get stuffed.
Anyway, they failed this kid. And I couldn't allow that to happen because the kid had done nothing. And I knew this person quite well. I said, look, how can a kid do a perfect reverse parallel park without looking in his mirrors and not looking in anything? You can't do it. It's impossible. And they still wouldn't accept it. Anyway, the thing about it was his father was really high up at Vic Roads. She got a backside kicked in because of it. But I didn't know his father worked for Vic Roads. But his father worked for Vic Roads, and she almost lost her job for it. But it still didn't achieve anything.
Wow.
It still didn't achieve anything. And I don't bother with them anymore. It really is sad. They've got some really good new testing officers that are more considerate. The ones that they're just using now to get rid of the backlog. But at the same time, they're trained incorrectly. I had a test today. I'll tell you, I better not say too much about it, but I'll tell you that the testing officer, I don't want to get him in trouble as well too, but he was asking me questions as to, would you do this or would you do that? Because this is what they told me to do and trained me to do. I said, no, you'd never do that because that is wrong. And I said, that is wrong because he said to me, would you do a reverse parallel park? It was on a bend over with a solid line there. And I said, how would you get the kid to do reverse parallel park there? He's reversing. You don't know what's coming around the corner, and you're over a solid line next to another parked car. Of course not. And he goes, well, they told me to do that. And I said, well, no, you wouldn't. And then I said, see that car a little bit further up? That's the one you would use. This was after she had done her. But he was asking me for advice. And I'm going to give my advice. I've actually there are good testing officers which I've spoken to.
I'm sure there
and
are.
Which I've spoken to before, and they've judged them for maybe speeding, but the kid hasn't sped because they've actually seen the sign, but the testing officer never saw the speed sign. And, you know, and that's human error. But
no, look, I hate him because the bureaucracy exists for the sake of the bureaucracy. It doesn't exist for outcomes. It's not, you know, the way they do things. And this thing with me, that had nothing to do with my vehicle being safer, which is what the whole thing was about. My vehicle being safe and me paying what I needed to pay and me doing what I needed to do. So it had nothing to do with that. All it had to do was them and their stupid forms and their stupid bureaucracy and look, I don't even know what it's about, but it's not about outcomes.
Their autocratic system for them to say, I'm the boss and I tell you what to do, Justin. It doesn't matter whether you're right. I'm Vic Rhodes.
Again, the Nazis. I told you. I detest them. But anyway, that's, it's not going to change in a hurry, but I really wish it would, because I don't think that they deserve their current status in this state.
I love the way you're putting it. It's hilarious. Hey, do you know that one part that I hate more than anything else is going for the test, going for the drive test. I don't mind teaching the kids, but I hate the drive test because the outcome can be, it's just on a fine little thing, and and you don't know whether you're going to get someone that's understanding, who sees it in the whole thing, or they're just going to judge a poor kid for something. If it's something serious, I understand it and I accept it. Okay, if they're speeding in a school zone, they're doing well over 40, and they haven't seen it and they don't adjust, I understand that. Or they've gone over a curb or driven, or gone through a red light, for example, or not stopped at a stop sign, that's understandable. But if they've just done some little thing and it doesn't,
no, they don't get.
It's unfair.
Well, The Simpsons, the TV show, two of the least likable characters in that show are Marge's two sisters. The least likable characters of the two sisters, both of them work at the license testing place in Springfield. Now, this is not an accident that they've created two of the least likable people, as being licensed. This is not a mistake. This is just good writing for a TV show.
Does that mean it happens worldwide then? Just
yeah, probably.
It probably happens worldwide. Yeah. I mean, they get into that seat of power and they think they are the power, and they're just
no.
They're to serve us, but they don't serve us. We've got to serve them, and that's the horrible part about it.
Well, I'll get them. I'll get them my way. I'll do it one column at a time. You do it your way, and eventually we'll get them to live somewhere else.
I'll let you in on one more pet hate that I hate, which I've seen on the road, and then we can finish it up. But one other pet hate that I have on the road is people not signaling now, and just moving from lane to lane without a signal, not communicating and just moving out in front of you. And you're expected to know that they're going to do it, and then they're going to move back again. And it's crazy.
Well, and one more that's even worse than that is people who indicate as they're doing it.
Yeah.
And I've said to my daughters, look, it is supposed to be indication, not commentary. It's not commentary. You're not trying to tell people, I'm doing this right now. It's I'm going to do this is actually what it's supposed to be.
Well, that's the communication that I try to teach all the students I teach. I say, look, you observe, you communicate it, and a bit like the lane change. Hi, I'm here. I want to come across in your lane. Will you let me come across in your lane? And you've got your mirrors there. They're letting you in if they're holding back or pulling back. If they're coming through, let them through. You don't have to get in front of that person. Communicate. It's a community, but people don't get it, unfortunately.
Well, I think if you notice that there are, people on motorbikes are better at it, mainly because they don't want to get hit.
On Harleys in particular?
Yeah, people on Harleys particularly are very good at it, because we don't like getting run over. Yeah. But I think the world would be better if most people at least rode a motorcycle a bit on a road and got an understanding of what the road feels like on a motorcycle. And we're good people. We're great people.
Are they as good as cyclists?
Oh, bloody cyclists. Oh,
look, well, okay, well, there.
Oh, there you go. Actually, I don't mind cyclists. They're fine. I'm really fine with cyclists. What I don't like about cyclists is when I see them break the law and there's nothing that can be done about it. Now,
They go through a red light. They go through red light.
Go through red lights. Going through red lights. And these people, I don't mind the normal cyclists. They're okay. But the militant cyclists really tick me off. The ones who feel that they are entitled to the road just as much as anyone else, even though they don't pay any registration, even though they don't pay any insurance, they pay nothing, but they're allowed to ride. I would really like to see cyclists start to get registered. Now, I don't say that to make money for the state, and I don't say that as a way of stopping them from being cyclists. But I think every cyclist, you go into, well, we're going to get rid of Vic Road, so whatever we call it, New Order roads or whatever title we come up with after those bastards have gone. After we're finished with those mongrels and they're out of here, we will. I think as a cyclist, you go in, you pay a very small fee, not a lot, just to help cover the insurance of the place, and you get a vest, high-vis vest on the back as a number.
Yeah.
And there's your registration number. And you just wear your high-vis vest over everything else. And if you run a red light, you can get reported. If you run down somebody and nearly kill them, you can get reported. This is not an original idea. It was actually a friend of mine that first mentioned to me that I've stolen now.
Yeah, that's fine. I love it.
It's a great idea. And then they'll have a lot more ownership over the roads and they'll stop doing stupid things.
That would be good because putting the onus just on drivers around them is unfair. They've got to be just as responsible. The moment they're on the road, unless they're on a bicycle track, which is totally different. But if they're on the main road, well, then they've got to be registered and they've got to do it according to the road rules, like everyone else.
And look, and you can get on any bike. You don't have to register the bike. I think that would be silly. You don't register the bike. You just register the rider. Yeah. You just have you get your high vis vest and it's got a number on it, and you can get reported for doing really stupid things, which some of them can do. There's a lot of good ones out there. I mean, the ones that wear lycra and stop at cafes and clip clop around on those stupid shoes that they wear. Yeah. I have no time for those kind of people. But good luck to them. Just get yourselves registered, and you'll be fine.
Yeah. Look, what did I want to say? Yeah, cyclists. I remember as a kid, we always used to have mirrors. I don't know if you remember on the Dragster, they used to have mirrors and that. They don't do that on bicycles anymore. I don't know why they don't put mirrors on bicycles to see what's actually coming around. And then when you do turn left or turn right, there's someone else coming or there's a car coming, and maybe take it a bit differently. Or
yes, yeah. They don't care.
Yeah.
They don't care. Second-class citizens on the road. And that's why they get treated as such.
Yeah.
But I hadn't actually noticed that, the lack of mirror. Gee, I couldn't survive without the mirrors on the motorcycle. I would really start. In fact, I would panic if I didn't have a mirror on the motorcycle.
Well, that's right. You need a mirror. I mean, with kids learning, I sometimes just lift the rear view mirror up and just to see whether they've actually noticed, because they're not looking at it. And then they go and I go, "How's that feel?" And they go, they get scared, because then they realize how important it is, and then they bring it down and then they look at all the mirrors, and it's fine. Hey, Justin, it's been fantastic. I love it.
Mate.
I really, really, truly enjoyed it. I thought it was brilliant.
Thank you, Nick. Me too. And you've done a great job with my girls. The young one's a bit of a speed freak, but you have done a great job.
Where did she get that from? Where did she get that from?
Oh, I think from me. I was a bit of. I'll tell you another thing. When I was on the roads, probably till I was about 23 or 24, I used to just drive, and I was from the country as well. I used to drive any speed I wanted to. Yeah. And I wasn't a hoon about it. It's just how I used to drive. Yeah. And it was only some good, hard-hitting speeding fines that got me to finally, and losing a friend on the roads. I had a couple of friends die on the roads before I realized that this was just the wrong way to be living my life. And but going fast is good fun. You just don't do it on the roads. That's all. You find another place.
I'm glad you said that at the end, because that's the most important thing. I mean, you listen to racing car drivers and they say, "Look, I would never drive the way I ride in a racing track like I do on the road," because people don't understand how to drive on a road.
If you feel the need to be like that, there's plenty of ways that you can do it, and you can go and do it and get it out of your system. But on the roads, I think with a motorbike too, it's you don't drink. And you don't speed, You don't drive aggressively, and I think your chances of surviving this life, change dramatically because of those things.
Yeah, definitely. Do you wear a belt around your waist for when you're bouncing up and down on the motorbike, like to protect your lower back or whatever? Or
no, actually, I don't have one of those. I don't drive that aggressively to probably warrant one of those. I'm just naturally fit. Nick.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah, that's right. It's all those push-ups. I'm just naturally fit to be able to ride the bike. No, I'm sort of a bit minimal with the gear. I've got all the safety gear and everything, but I'm a little bit. I kind of like being stripped down and
thongs on the
thongs on there. Yeah, they work well. Yeah, no, I certainly. I don't think I could ever. I'm at the stage too. Once in a while, I will have shorts and sort of thong type shoes on, and I'll get on the bike to move it in the garage, just to sort of move it forward and then push it back or whatever. And that feels just so weird to me. I just couldn't imagine ever getting on the bike with shorts and not proper shoes. And I always buy boots now. I don't even buy shoes. I always cover the ankles and those kind of things. So it's But remember, it's only half a life. If you're not on a bike, it's only half a life.
Well, we'll finish it off with that then, I think, Justin. That's brilliant.
Yeah. Good on you, Nick. Wonderful, mate.
All the best, Justin.
Chat to you soon.
Thank you very much.
See you, mate. Bye.
So that concludes our show for today. Thank you all for listening in. We look forward to presenting our next podcast to you very soon. Take care, and let's build a better world together.